Hi, good morning, Keller Williams, and welcome to our final sales meeting of 2022. Who knew? Who knew? Who could have thunk it? We're already at the last 10 or 11 days of the year. Congratulations on another great year. And we're going to cap things off with a great meeting today. What is can only be described as a fan favorite, the annual broker meeting, where we will hear from Andrew Ginter very shortly. And prior to that, we're going to touch on a couple of major things for the first quarter. I want to make sure everyone locks down a few things on their calendar, and we can make sure that we get off to a wonderful start in 2023. It's going to be our best year yet. Take a ton of market share, win big, and that all starts right now. So as we start every meeting, want to highlight a belief in our belief system for everybody as we head into the holidays. And I'm going to talk about success this week, and results through people. Hopefully you will have the opportunity to spend some time over the holidays with some of the important people in your life, and the people who inside of, or not necessarily inside of, but outside of the industry of real estate that support you, encourage you, provide you the opportunity, afford you the chance to be successful in a career in real estate. That could be your friends, that could be your family, that could be your spouse, it could be your children, and those things also could be part of your big why. But I want to encourage everybody to take advantage of what we have in the next 10 days, which, there are still deals closing. We processed over 20 checks yesterday. There's still deals closing, still business happening. And if you were to take a few days off to really soak up those people in your life, now would be the time to do it. Take advantage of it, make the connection, reconnect to the people in your life that are a part of your big why, or should be part of your big why, or could be part of your big why. And that'll be huge to really filling your tank as we start, a long, hard, and successful run here into 2023 and beyond, right? The market is shifting, and we're going to shift with it. Market doesn't determine our outcomes, our strategies do. And so when the market shifts, our strategies shift, we succeed, we take market share. And the market share that you take in a shift, the market share that you take next year, you'll never give back. And what you do with that market share to serve the people who are a part of your big why and a part of your life, that's where we bring this thing full circle. So really lean into and soak up those opportunities. Whoops. All right. So next month, next year in January, we actually have 3 different opportunities for career advancement for people who are not yet licensed realtors. So in the very first week of the year, on January 5th, we're going to do a Zoom exclusive conversation. And this is really targeting people who have not yet started their real estate classes, don't have maybe the slightest inkling of how real estate works. What's a career in real estate look like? How would I even get started? Right? We want those folks on this Zoom. Over the holidays, you're going to be meeting with friends, family, former colleagues, people around the block. And you might hear from somebody that they are sick of their job. They're looking for opportunities. They're looking for a side hustle. The economy is getting tough. They need more. They need a second stream of income or a third stream of income. This is a great place to direct them. We're going to have an awesome conversation. We're going to engage with a couple agents for some interviews and some conversations about what it looks like to get started. But for somebody who has not even the slightest inkling of anything related to real estate, this is the best place for them to start. Now, if there is somebody you know that is ready to pull the trigger on a career in real estate, or is in a position like they're already in real estate classes, or they're already a licensed realtor, we have career nights on both January 23rd and 30th, Pepper Pike and Rocky River, respectively. Those will be huge opportunities for the folks who are a little bit further down the funnel. And somebody could go to the one on the 5th, sign up for classes, get started, and be halfway through their classes by the time we get to the 30th, which means that they can move pretty quickly through the process if they so chose. But we're doing this all around January. There's going to be a lot of energy around New Year, New Me. I know I've been walking around saying it, and we're going to have a lot of opportunities to support people in their career growth and in their development as entrepreneurs, and business owners. So put those on your calendar. Make sure everybody you know knows. We just dropped them in the chat, and you'll be getting some more communications about them from us shortly.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Also on those career nights and New Year, New Career, I shared in the chat, they are a little marketing toolkit. So if you guys want to download the promos and share them out on your own social media or Facebook pages, you can just easily click and download the pictures and it's all there.
Outstanding.
Sorry if you already said that.
No, I didn't say that. But that's huge. So you can brand this as you. Brand it as you, brand it as your team, brand it as opportunities with your real estate business if you so choose, or just get another marketing hit, right? It really tells the story of success when you're able to post and say, we're hiring, right? We're hiring sounds like growth, and growth sounds like a good thing next year. Speaking of growth, there's no single program in Keller Williams. There's no single opportunity that is more statistically proven to lead to growth than Bold. Bold returns to Northeast Ohio in this January. It will be led by the #1 Bold coach of 2022, responsible for the largest Bold launch of 2022, Hudson Warren. There have already been 80 of the 100 spots taken and reserved as full Bold. If you are thinking like, oh, I'll sign up for Bold, or I'll go to First Step and sign up there because that's historically what has happened. There's a limited number of seats, a limited number of opportunities for you to grow your business and take market share next year. If you are even a 0.1% of the way there, invest in yourself, invest in the opportunity to be accountable to the results that you want, absent anything that happens in the market, and sign up for Bold. And if you're looking for an opportunity to do that in a way that manages cash flow, reach out to myself or Julia or Carrie about opportunities for a Bold loan. Many agents will qualify for an opportunity for us to help you bridge the gap from a financial standpoint around these holidays. But don't let a little bit of cash flow hold you back from a lot of upside for your business with Bold in 2023. And starting the year, we are going to bring so Bold is coming in the 3rd week. For the first 2 weeks of January, we are going to be running an Ignite Spark. So 6 sessions of Ignite over 2 weeks, focused on the most important elements of activity and engagement with your client base to build a big pipeline and have a big business in 2023. So a couple of things I want you to note here. We are partnering and pairing up our instructors because we're in a market shift. You'll find that a lot, maybe all, or at least the majority of our Ignite sessions are going to have an instructor who's been licensed since before the last market shift and one that's licensed after. So a little old school, new school vibe here to make sure that regardless of what the market requires, we are going to put our agents in a position to deliver for their clients and win in the market. Another thing that you're going to notice as we lean into 2023 is it's back to basics in a lot of ways. So you're going to see our calendar respect your time blocks for lead generation. If you're not blocking off from 9 to 11 or 9 to noon for lead generation, taking action, following up, and preparing for the rest of the day, then you're going to put yourself in a bad position to be successful, or a less likely position to be successful. And we want to support that. So trainings, sales meetings, everything's moving to the afternoon. So get in, rack out your lead generation, have lunch, and then get your training for the day, go on your appointments, take your listings, and win. So that's the slate for the start. It'll be Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday of the very first week of January. So January 3rd, this thing kicks off in Pepper Pike with Eric Akbar and Mike Arco talking about the most important thing for your business in 2023, which is lead generation. He or she who controls the lead controls their destiny. And then at the end of the month, so we go ignite, bold, and then shift into overthrive. We've got one of our vice presidents from Keller Williams, Matt Green, formerly one of the top team leaders and top OPs in the entire country, and Donnie Brookman. Donnie is one of the fastest people to reach the MREA, Millionaire Real Estate Agent status, out of Orlando, Florida, by leveraging tech and database to do that. But those guys are both going to talk about shifting into overthrive. So just capitalizing on the market shift, leaning in to opportunities to, you guessed it, generate leads, maximize your skill set for the market, and then implementing the right elements of leverage at the right time to scale your business. So this event will sell out. This event is free. This event is for all Keller Williams in Northeast Ohio. And so I encourage you all, hit that QR code, grab the link out of the chat, and make sure that you are there. It will be a can't miss event. Then finally, calendars, mark them, tickets, get them, get ready. Big celebration on February 9th, 20 years of Keller Williams Greater Metropolitan being celebrated at this awards night in February, as well as celebrating another milestone year for Keller Williams Greater Metropolitan. Very fitting that it would happen in the 20th year. So we're excited to celebrate our past, celebrate our success, and get excited for our future that night, February 9th, Capitol Theater, followed by a reception at Lux. Whoops. All right, partner update. Let's get it over to the newest beard on the block, Sean Hadley, ladies and gentlemen. I want to stop sharing my screen and get a zoom in on that thing. That is an impressive undercarriage you've got there.
I'm looking to catch up to you, Mike. Let's get the hair flowing here shortly.
Yeah.
We'll be
is it true that Jarecki can't grow a beard? He had it lasered off so that he looks like he'd stop shaving.
That's a baby face I have, Mike. Just can't get going.
All right, guys, what's going on? I feel like we got a little bit of a reprieve in the mortgage market this week.
Yeah, dodged a few bullets. So last week, the last Tuesday meeting was right after the inflation report, which we took on as good news. Inflation numbers came back slightly better than expected, and that is, huge news. And in fact, happened two months in a row. Wednesday, the Fed meeting concluded as expected. The Fed raised the federal funds rate 0.5%, which of course is not the mortgage rate, but federal funds rate. So all that was forecasted. And then there was a press conference afterwards where the language wasn't a total, wet blanket, but it kind of softened up the excitement from Tuesday. So more or less saying, hey, the Fed was going to keep this going. They would rather overdo it than underdo it. but we did still see a little modest improvement in interest rates. So 30-year fixed, the national average right now is in the low sixes. I mean, depending on credit score, you're going to be pretty close to 6. You know, the low 6 is generally where they're at. A year and a day ago, the 30-year rate was 3.17%. And I don't say that to kind of, you know, beat the drum that we've been being on, you know, the woe is me attitude that we've had for most of the year, because it's all about perspective. If you look over the past 5-10 years, 6% is not a horrible interest rate. When, yeah, you look for the last 12 months, it's virtually double. But where we were just 6 weeks ago, we were at 7.4% and 8% was dead ahead of us. Not saying we won't be back there necessarily, but we're in a very good spot compared to where most expected us to be right now. So, you know, sort of just take that for what it's worth. And I think we're going to head into a good year, being a little bit better off than where we thought we would have been going into this last quarter. And then just I'm popping a little team photo. Oh, I put in there twice, my apologies. But just want to say thank you from the team. Happy holidays, happy New Year's. You know, you see the 3 of us and Carmen, you know, frequently, certainly on these, and then in the office here. Behind the scenes, there's another 7 of us here for the Headley branch, kind of steering the ship and keeping it the right way. And we really appreciate all the support over the years, and just, you know, thank each and every one in this office, and top down all the way. So that's just wanted to mention all that. And Chris and Don.
Go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, I've got nothing. Happy holidays, everybody.
No, it's been a great relationship going forward. One that Hadley started with 20 years ago at this office, and the fact that Chris and I are part of it just makes things that much better. And just know that we're here for you going forward.
Yeah, well, we greatly appreciate it, guys, and know that in the shifting market, there's going to be shifting financial solutions. There's stuff changing, it feels like, weekly with everything related to finance. And so for us to serve our clients at the highest level, it's getting them to you. So we're thrilled to be in business with you and looking forward to another great year next year. Happy holidays and happy New Year.
You too.
Thanks.
All right. Speaking of people we love to be in business with, GM Title and Escrow. I think I saw Tiffany and Jade both on today.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Good
I
morning.
am going to make this quick. I just wanted to give everybody huge thank you from my behalf to the brokerage. Obviously, it's great to be partners with you guys. You guys are awesome. Hope you and your family have a great holiday, and we will be closed on Monday the 26th, and then again on January the 2nd in observance for Christmas and New Year's, obviously. But hope you guys have a great holiday. Share it with family, friends. Have a great, I heard it's supposed to snow a lot and be the coldest Christmas in, I guess, a decade. So bundle up, keep warm, and hope you guys enjoy it very much. Well deserved on everybody's behalf to have a little bit of a break and spend with family and friends.
Yeah, I'll just second Jade's sentiment. It's great to join you guys on a Tuesday morning again. And we just love being partnered with all of you. It's truly a pleasure to have gotten to know everybody over these last few years and work with you and help you hopefully grow your business and provide the best service to you and your clients. And we hope and we know that 2023 will just be a great year for us and for you guys. And we're here for you educationally, you know, spiritually, whatever you need from us, we are here for you. If you just want to call us and vent, we are here for you, right? I mean, sometimes you just need someone to do that with. So I've been doing this for longer than I'd like to admit. And it's nice to have someone to just lean on, and we'd love to be that for you. So thank you again, everybody, and have a wonderful, happy, and healthy New Year.
Thank you so much. Right back at you, ladies. And then over to Jessica Ivins with Greater Metropolitan Management. Thought I saw Jess on. Maybe I didn't. Oh, hey, Jess.
Hey, good morning, everybody. Well, sales might be a little bit slow, but your investor clients are still eating up these properties. So just wanted to thank you guys for sending all your referrals over to us. We definitely appreciate it. And if you guys need anything that I can help you with, any tools, resources to start off your new year to share with your clients, please let me know. I'm going to give an unsolicited shout out for Bold, if that's all right, Mike.
Please.
I had the pleasure of meeting and spending time with Hudson a few years ago, and he's fantastic. He's built a really great business for himself. And just the fact that Bold is back in person, if you guys haven't signed up for it, I highly recommend it. I'm 5 times Bold myself, and I know that there's people on this call that are Jake specifically. I think he's 20 times Bold or something like that now. So
I think him and Pete Formica are fighting for the top spot at KWGM a number of times Bold.
Yeah. So definitely just wanted to give a little free plug there for Bold. So if you haven't signed up for Bold, I definitely would recommend it. And like Sean and Don and Jade and Tiffany, just thank you guys for all your support this past year. You're all amazing. And if I can do anything to help you, please let me know. Have a good holiday.
Thanks so much, Jess. And here's to another great year of partnership with the management company, serving our clients from end to end. And now the moment you've all been waiting for. Andrew Ginter's Brokers Top 10. Ladies and gentlemen, Letterman might be retired, but Ginter is going to give us a good old-fashioned countdown here. We're going to run through some slides. Andrew's going to talk about lessons learned, opportunities for the future, and most importantly, what we can do to protect our clients and ourselves. Don't scramble to screenshot. We're going to send out this whole presentation and the recording afterwards. If you're looking for tidbits and facts, that's what you got.
All right. Excellent. I got to say, when me and Carrie talked about this probably a month ago now, I thought, oh, this won't be very hard to come up with like 10 great things to talk about so that everybody can learn from other people's mistakes. And I got to about number 7 and started to have a difficult time to get to 10. But I did make it to 10 and actually discovered very early this morning when I was wrapping up putting this together that I only had 9 when I thought I had 10. So I had to come up with one more early this morning. But I was able to.
Andrew, is that a compliment to our agents that like you just haven't had that many high hard ones to deal with, that you could only come up with 7 opportunities?
It might be. I think the reality is there's about 4 on here that are 80% of our problems. And then there's another 6 that are potentially worse problems, but just don't happen as frequently. So we'll, I loosely have them in order of importance, or at least in order of regularity, let's say. So as we move through these, you're going to see that you'll maybe some of them will hit closer to home as we get closer to 1. But before I dive into this, I do want to, in holiday spirit, I guess, as everybody else just did want to raise a glass to Jess Ivins. I don't know if she's still listening or not, but our management company has grown like crazy in the last year and a half or 2 years, and it was not built 3 or 4 years ago for what it is today. And I think Jess is primarily the reason we've gotten where we are and been able to get our head on straight in the last year. So I do want to thank you for that, Jess. It's been great this year. I know we've had some difficult moments, but it's been a good one. And for those of you who don't have any experience with our management company and have clients who it could be a fit for, that maybe they haven't even thought about it, it could be a great way to serve them, is to even offer that up as a possibility for those of you with investors that might be local but have more than 8 or 10 units and are doing it on their own. Going from 8 or 10 to 14 or 15 probably isn't possible without a manager if they have a full-time job. And if that's in their sights, you've got to get them on the phone with Jess at some point so that they can actually get there and keep their sanity. So that's it. I will dig in, but thank you, Jess. I appreciate it.
Thank you. What a nice surprise.
All right, well, let's get into this. I don't have control over the slideshow. I believe Carrie does, right?
I'm your Vanna today,
Oh,
Andrew.
excellent, excellent.
Tell me
So
what
let's,
you want.
we're going to start at number
Next
10. All right, final walkthroughs. This is an interesting one because we've had problems from all sides with final walkthroughs. We've had problems when people do them, problems when people don't do them, problems when just agents do them, problems when at times just buyers have gone, when sellers have said it's okay, of course, buyers have gone by themselves and created problems. So there's no perfect answer, but the one thing I will say is we should be doing final walkthroughs all the time. In a perfect world, you do a final walkthrough with your client there. The second best choice, I don't love it, but it's better than not doing one at all, is agents doing them on behalf of their clients. There's obvious trip hazards there where, you can go do one and then the day after closing, your client shows up and there's a broken window or a window treatment that's missing or something that you didn't notice. But at the end of the day, the purpose of the final walkthrough is to make sure there's no like serious hazards. It's not about whether a doorknob is latching or not latching. It is not a reinspection by any means. But when you weigh the consequences of not doing one because your client's not available, doing one without them, the consequences are much smaller potentially. That could be bad, versus not doing one at all and then showing up the day after closing and there's, the toilet's been leaking for 2 weeks because the house is empty and there's, 25 gallons of water on the living room floor, that type of thing. I know it's a 1 in a million type of thing, but that's the reason we do them. So please, please, please be doing them. We are coming out of a time where a walkthrough is potentially the first time people have seen the house. So this final walkthrough stuff was way stickier in the last couple of years than it probably will be moving forward. But if you have a strange situation where like a buyer has not seen the house and they did an inspection, their only interaction with the house is like an inspection report, you have to be very careful with final walkthroughs because they're going to want to turn it into an inspection and potentially want to start negotiating things. And you've got to be able to set it out ahead of time what the purpose of a final walkthrough is. And it is only to make sure that the house still meets the basic baseline of what it once was. You're not there to do an 1.5 hour inspection and flush toilets and run sinks and do all that. Obviously, if you show up and there's something that's been leaking, that's a problem. But if there's a faucet leak that's discovered for the first time because they never were in the house, who knows if that used to be leaking or not, right? So you have to draw those lines with people and be clear with them about what the purpose of it is. And if you do that, final walkthroughs won't be a problem. I've seen some buyers do some strange things this past year, but again, I think a lot of it was market-based and things will be different moving forward, I think. So on to number 9. All right, so number 9, that our ethics are more important than our clients' desires. I have seen a number of situations where our agents get put in very difficult spots where they have a client that wants them to do something that in a lot of cases could seem relatively harmless, but is on the verge of being unethical or just over the line. Some good examples might be a deal falls apart after an inspection, and there are things on the inspection that are moderately subjective, but that the inspector makes a comment about being defective or hazardous in some way, and you're the listing agent, your seller disagrees with it. That doesn't mean it doesn't need to be disclosed, right? Just because a seller says like that's not a big deal doesn't mean that it's not now an item that needs to be disclosed because of the fact that now it's known. Right. It could be something as simple as there was a roof leak that was discovered in the attic by the chimney that has since been fixed, isn't currently active, but was leaking at one point. You got to get that stuff on disclosures and you got to get your clients on the same page with why that's important. We don't want to turn our ethics into a battle with our clients, but we need to get them on the same page with the fact that like we have to be honest with everybody. And even if our clients see that as to their detriment, our duty is first to our ethics and then to our clients, not to our clients and then to our ethics. And like I said, we've had some agents get put in some pretty difficult situations where because of the way the conversation went, they kind of were forced into a losing situation with their clients. That's why I say it's important that you handle this out front with people. I think especially sellers, you're more apt to run into this problem on the seller side than the buyer side, where they will think that you being honest with somebody is to their detriment. And you've got to make sure they understand that above all, being fair and honest with everybody involved is the most important thing. And to not do that only leaves you open to much bigger failure than the difference of a few $1,000s. So be careful there. Don't let anybody try to back you into a corner and talk you into doing what's best for them if it's not what's best for everybody. So, all right, on to number 8. I think this is a good one. People break contracts. Surprise, it happens. Unfortunately, it's always difficult when our clients are the ones who are doing the right thing. Sometimes our clients are the ones doing the wrong thing. But in a world where you expect everybody to do what they're supposed to do, it's very difficult to accept that somebody isn't going to do what they're supposed to do. But it happens. I assume most of us on this call have been part of a deal that went south because somebody did something that was not appropriate relative to the contract. So I want to dig in a little bit to what we need to do when that happens. And honestly, it's almost the same path, whether you are representing the person who's breaking the contract or not. But in both cases, you need to do a little bit of digging and find out why this is happening, first and foremost, because you might be able to do an end around on the whole thing and keep the deal together, as opposed to letting it fall apart in a way it shouldn't. If you are willing to, do some communicating and seek to understand what's going on. In both cases, whether your client's the one breaking the contract or the one being harmed, you got to get an attorney involved, and do not, under any circumstances, ever start digging into conversations about what the ramifications of the situation might be. And that's, again, whether you're representing the person breaking the contract or not. As soon as you start digging into, well, you'll be able to sue them since they broke the contract and get this or get that, you're quickly wading into practicing law. And honestly, most of us don't have any idea what we're talking about. Like I hear of people getting advice from their agents all the time about, especially on the listing side, about, well, we're not going to sign the release because we'll just, once we sell it, if we sell it for less, we're going to sue you for the difference. It doesn't work that way, pretty much ever. So don't get into telling people things that end up not being true, because then we will be the people getting sued, which is much worse than the person breaking the contract being the one that gets sued. Now, another piece to this is, especially when our client's the one breaking the contract, but really either way, is we get into a situation where we have to protect ourselves from our clients sometimes. And you have to make sure that all the communication that you're doing around the transaction, once it's starting to go south, that you've got it in writing. That doesn't mean you can't get on the phone with somebody, but it does mean when you get off the phone, you need to send them an email, just reiterating what happened and kind of continuing the conversation in an email, so that you've got everything in writing, that you can at least show them that, I explained to you that this would be breaking the contract. We talked about this, we talked about that. If you do it all over the phone, it's all just going to be a matter of he said, she said type stuff, which doesn't hold up anywhere and doesn't protect you at all. And you have to make sure that you can prove that you were doing your job. And doing your job when representing a person who's breaking the contract is making sure they understand they're breaking the contract and telling them they need to talk to an attorney. Some basic things like that. You've got to have that stuff in writing to protect yourself, because you can quickly become part of the problem if you can't prove that you were not part of the problem. Unfortunately, as licensed professionals, we run into a situation where if we can't prove our innocence, we're guilty a lot of times. Which doesn't sound very constitutional or correct, but it's the way it ends up working out. Our burden of proof to show that we were doing the right thing is at a much higher standard because we have a license. So we have to be careful with this. And now let's step back from even the moment where somebody's actually breaking a contract. It is super important that your clients understand along the way that just because there's a contract and there's rules around when things are supposed to be done or how they're supposed to be done, it's important that people understand that that may not end up being the case. Now, it might only happen 1 out of 30 or 40 times, or even more. But it's a good idea to make sure that you've at least like taken your client up to that scenario so that they can have an understanding that that could happen, and that they're not putting themselves in a position where they've not thought about it or planned for it at all. Because you never know what the other side's thinking. Like in our business, everything is good until it's bad. So, and the moment it turns bad, your client's going to look at you and say, how did this happen? And that they're going to be surprised by it because it's not going to be something you talked with them about. So it's important along the way as you're moving through the process that you discuss these things with your clients, even though they might be 1 in 100 or 1 in 50 or 1 in 1,000 for that matter, that they understand that that is possible, so that so it's not a big surprise when it does happen. So, all right, on to number 7. And keep going. There we go. All right, navigating POS minefields. I obviously this is a much bigger deal on the east side than it is on the west side. I bring this up primarily though because we regularly have agents doing 1 or 2 deals a year in cities with point of sales. I think for our agents that do the majority of their business in cities with point of sales, this stuff's all going to sound elementary to you, everything I'm going to say about this. But for the agents that don't, that's where the problems come in. So it's, I think first and foremost, if you're going to deal in cities with point of sales, it's important that you understand the nuances around them because they're all somewhat different. It's also really important that you understand the differences of how those things get handled if there's certain types of financing involved, as to what can and can't get escrowed for, that type of stuff. A great resource for that is certainly going to be Sean, Don, or Chris, if you've got questions. But it's super important that you can identify the possibility of problems before it's too late, which really means if you've got a buyer looking in Garfield Heights and Bedford, that you get an understanding of what that point of sale looks like if you don't already have one, that you don't wait until it's time to write an offer to start getting an understanding. If you're going to operate in a city you haven't operated in before and they have rules around this stuff, you need to know what they are ahead of time so that you can make sure you can talk about that with your client in real time when you're looking at houses and making a decision about picking this one versus that one. Because if one of them has violations that are going to have to be assumed and they're buying a house with an FHA loan, that house may quickly become less of an option than the other one. And it's a real shame when you take your client all the way to the top of the roller coaster of emotion and then realize that you're not going to be able to move forward, or that you continue to move forward and now you've got 40 or 50 days worth of nightmare over it. So it's really important that you make sure you understand financing options and point of sale issues and where those things converge, and making sure that you can actually get over the hump on that stuff. Because unfortunately what ends up happening if you can't is the gun gets pointed at us, because our agents, our clients come back to us and say, what the hell's going on here now? I've paid for an inspection. I've paid for an appraisal. I've told my apartment complex I'm moving because I have to give them 60 days notice. And now here we are 40 days in and we don't have just a hurdle in front of us. We've got a brick wall that we can't get over because of the rules around the POS with the city and the rules that the lender has around what they will and won't let you do with those violations. So please make sure that you're getting an education about that stuff ahead of time, as opposed to in real time under contract, because that's where the problems end up happening, is when you're trying to learn on the fly with that stuff. So, all right, on to number 6. All right, explore the possibilities. I feel like this is one that I talk about with people all the time when we're in the middle of a problem. And this is around all things. This isn't specific to one part of a transaction or one part of things with buyers versus sellers, but think of all the decision points that we experience with clients along the way. And that starts at the first listing appointment or the first buyer consultation meeting, all the way through the final walkthrough or the day of closing. Along the way, there's constant moments where you have to make a decision. And this like real estate journey is like a choose your own adventure book, right? You've got however many choices, depending on the situation, and you've got to navigate those choices with your clients. And it's never our job to tell them what the right choice is. It's our job to make sure that they completely understand all of the choices available to them and all of the consequences of those choices. And one thing I always encourage our agents to do is offer up choices to your clients that won't even make any sense to them. That's fine. Way better to have given them 10 choices and only 6 of them even made sense than to have given them 4 choices and one of the 2 that made sense would have been the choice that would have made the most sense and you didn't even mention it to them. You know, I get the phone call from an agent all the time that says, here's the problem, like, what's the answer I should give my client? And the answer you should give your client is all of the choices, not one choice. There's very few moments in over the course of a real estate transaction where there's only one best choice. There's usually at least 2 or 3, and then it's dependent on your client's situation or the situation of even the other people involved in the transaction to try and create a meeting of the minds on things. So I encourage you when at a decision point of any real consequence or value, before you get on the phone with your clients, stop and think for a minute about what all of the potential choices are. Again, even if some of them don't make any sense, that's fine. That's what brainstorming is about. The best brainstorming sessions generate lots of ideas, not just good ideas. So it's really important that you go through that exercise at every decision point that matters, and make sure that you can bring all those choices to your clients so that they can make the best choice. Because again, the worst thing that happens in a transaction is that moment when your client turns to you and says, I don't understand, we never talked about that. So don't let that happen to you, and make sure you've always talked about all the choices so that you can identify the best choice. So, all right, on to number 5, removals of contingencies. I don't know about you guys, but I think this is generally my least favorite part of a transaction, personally, as when I'm selling a property, because it is the moment where people will get very strange, potentially, and want strange things, and where buyers and sellers' expectations really start to move to opposite ends of the continuum of what's reasonable and what's not reasonable. So it's really important that you do a good job around that when you're representing either side, that you take into account how the other side's going to treat this in order to try and get the best potential outcome. Now, let me take a step back here because I'm seeing my first bullet point now, which starts before the inspection even, which is to manage the timeline well around the inspection process. A lot of our agents find themselves in hot water when they don't even do anything with their client for 2 or 3 days from the time they have a contract regarding the inspections. And that can't happen, because if you only have 5 or 7 days to do inspections, and you reach out to your client 3 days in regarding getting it scheduled and getting them inspector names and numbers, you're already behind the 8 ball. We're going to talk about this a couple of other times in the rest of these 4 after this, but it's really important that you guys have a pretty standard email that's going out to your clients the moment you've got a contract, with a copy of the contract in it and a very clear understanding of dates that matter. And so if it's on the buyer side, well, even the seller side, the loan application deadline, the inspection deadline, the closing dates, the possession dates. On the seller side, very important that email even has like the items staying in the house that were on the contract, so that you've got all that stuff in one spot right at the beginning, as opposed to days in, or in some cases weeks in, when you're talking for the first time about what was on the contract that's going to stay. But that email needs to be something you create and you're sending out with every transaction so that you can manage that timeline. And then secondly is managing sellers after repairs have been agreed to. The amount of times buyers are doing a final walkthrough and ROC repairs aren't complete yet is insane to me. And that's whether it's our buyers or it's our seller. If you are representing a seller that's agreed to make some repairs, agreed to replace an electric panel or replace GFCI outlets or whatever, that needs to be something that the day after you've made that agreement, you're starting to put in place how those things are going to get fixed. If they need to call somebody and they need names and numbers from you, the day after that ROC is signed, you need to start doing that. Even if closing may be a month away, but you have to start managing that process right away. And lots of agents are waiting because they're happy, they're done with the ROC. They're like, oh, this is great. We made it through the inspection. Now we're good to go. Or a seller says, well, I'm not making any repairs till after the appraisal. Okay, fine. Don't make the repair, but make the phone call. Like, you have to keep that process moving, because you end up waiting until a week and a half before closing, and then you're going to call an electrician to get an electrical panel replaced. Good luck. It's not going to happen. So manage that process well. Don't expect your seller to manage it the right way, because they won't. They've got 1,000 things running through their mind about the process of getting their house sold and moving, and the last thing on their list are some repairs they agreed to. Oftentimes, they don't even remember what repairs they agreed to. When I get involved in a situation where repairs weren't made, I get on the phone with our own clients that are sellers, and I read through the ROC with them, and they're like, I don't remember that. Thinking, Jesus, this hasn't been managed at all. So we need to manage that process well. Now, when it comes to buyers, it's really important that you set expectations around repairs correctly. And in a perfect world, if you're representing a buyer and there is an amount of repairs that need to be made that will cost less than their closing cost, just get a closing cost credit. Please, just get a closing cost credit. The amount of times that buyers walk in and see repairs that the seller made and don't like them is out of this world. And if it's a $1,500 repair, just get a closing cost credit. And if your buyer's like, well, I don't want to be responsible for making the repair, help them with that. Take the identification of a contractor off their plate and give them a great choice. If you don't have good contractors, there's 470 of us here, and some of us have great contractors. So get on the Facebook page, reach out to agents in the office. You can help your clients with that, and it will save them so much headache of being unhappy with a repair that a seller agreed to make. Because you better believe what a seller is going to do and what a buyer expects are at opposite ends of the continuum usually. So don't have sellers make repairs for your clients if you can help it. Sometimes you can't, but if you can, get in the way of that if possible. Now, if you're going to make repairs or have repairs made more so than make repairs, clarity is king on a contingency removal. You don't just start referencing, page 5, number 1B on the inspection report that just says that there's a problem. Make very clear statements about what repairs sellers need to make on behalf of your buyers. If you're the listing agent, don't let a buyer's agent not give you clarity, because the lack of clarity will immediately create the opportunity for a difference in understanding about what repair people are agreeing to. And again, nobody's going to find out about it until the day before closing at a final walkthrough, that the repair wasn't made the way the buyer expected it to be made, or the outlets they wanted replaced aren't the ones that the seller replaced. So please, please, please make sure if any repairs are being made, whether you represent the buyer or the seller, make sure there's clarity on that document before you start making repairs, or before it's even agreed to for that matter. There shouldn't be an agreement and then you start getting clarity. Get clarity right out of the gate on what's being done. So, all right, on to number 4. Wire fraud. So many brokerages at this point have like separate addendums about wire fraud. I don't know if you guys have noticed this, but in our contracts, listing and purchase agreements, there's a paragraph about wire fraud in both of them. My conversation with our office around this is different than the conversation with the public. The conversation with the public is very simple. It's, if you are wiring money somewhere, don't just receive an email for wiring instructions. Receive the email and then call the person that emailed you, or call the office, better yet. Don't just call the number in the email, because if the email is fraud, you're going to be calling the person that's trying to commit the fraud. So call the title company, confirm that they sent you the wire, confirm the wiring, the account numbers and the routing numbers over the phone. That's what you need to be telling the public. What's really important for us as agents is that we stay completely out of the process of the title company getting wiring instructions to or from our clients. The moment that we insert ourselves in that is the moment that we become responsible for bad outcomes. So, and I mean, there's been numerous lawsuits where agents received emails from title companies and forwarded those emails to their clients. That email had a fraudulent wiring instructions in it. Buyer loses money, agent's responsible, not the person who committed the fraud, because they're never going to find them, unfortunately. But so we need to be totally removed from that process. And it's important you tell your clients that, because all of us, if we've sold more than a dozen houses in our life, we've all had the super needy client that wants us to facilitate everything for them. They want us to schedule inspections. They want us to handle getting them to a loan officer and a loan application. They want us to handle getting the wiring instructions, scheduling the closing appointment. They want us to handle everything. Some of that stuff it's okay to handle. Most of the stuff I just said you should not be handling. But in particular, wiring instructions, because you know, if somebody's paying cash for a $300,000 house, there's a $300,000 liability there, and we want no part of that. So do not get involved with sending or receiving wiring instructions with your clients. Let that be just between them and the title company, or the party receiving them. In most cases, the title company. So we have had a couple of close calls with that this year. I will tell you, in every close call we've had, our agents had no part of it, so it was not our issue. But at first glance, it's real easy to get freaked out when you find out that your client just wired 100 grand and it's gone, because they're going to immediately turn to you and say, what happened? How did you let this happen? And that's why it's important you have no part of it, so that you're not the one letting it happen. All right, on to number 3, possession problems. Man, oh man, I can't tell you the amount of times that we've had issues with sellers not leaving. Whether they're our clients or not, sellers not leaving is pretty wild to me, but it happens all the time. So it's important to manage buyer expectations to some extent. It's not unreasonable that a buyer assumes, if the contract says that they get possession on the same day as title transfer, that they would get possession on the same day as title transfer. This part is kind of back to people break contracts. Surprise, it happens. So I'm not telling you to tell your buyers, don't be certain you're going to get the keys on the day the contract says, because I don't think that's an unrealistic expectation to set. But I think that there's a time and place in the process of looking for a house that you can, you know, in a friendly setting, share some horror stories, just so that the buyer understands that sometimes people do weird stuff and there's nothing you can do about it. You know, you can't go, you know, take the doors off the hinges and throw the people's stuff in the front yard. It doesn't work that way. And buyers need to understand that to some extent. Again, I don't think it's unreasonable to expect to get possession when the contract says, but it might not be a bad idea to make sure they know that sometimes it doesn't happen that way, and it's difficult when it doesn't. Seller side, this is really more where this conversation matters. It is really important as a listing agent that you are being very clear with sellers right from the moment that you're presenting an offer, what it says about closing dates and possession dates, because sellers think all kinds of strange things. I had a seller personally just a couple of months ago that, you know, I'm sitting down presenting the offer to them. We did it all in person because she was about 95 years old and didn't have an email address even. So that's what we're doing, sitting there, and it's her and her daughter. And I tell them the closing date that was proposed on the offer and the possession date. And I think there was 5 days in between, because I had put in the MLS, needed some time to close another deal and that and get her moved. And her daughter turns to me and says, oh, I thought sellers always had 30 days. And I turned to her and I said, I don't think that hardly ever happens. But you never know what people are expecting. And in this case, she thought they'd have 30 days after closing to get out of the house. And that was just standard or something. So it's really important that you fully explain what possession means, right? You and I know what it means. We'd say, okay, possession transfers on January 20th. We know what that means. It's really important that you tell your clients possession transfers on January 20th. That means by the middle of the day on the 20th, you guys have to be prepared to give the keys to the buyer and never go back in the house again. That's a very different statement than possession transfers on January 20th. So make sure you explain that and so that they understand what it means to meet that standard of possession transferring. Because it's like I said, it's unbelievable what people expect or what they think is the case if we don't set the expectation for them. On to number 2. All right, pre and post possession issues. I think this will start to be more of a thing again as we start to see transactions stacked up and home sale contingencies. You know, what we've seen recently is the post possession thing being normal because buyers were just willing to give sellers whatever they want to get it under contract. I think those days are over, and now we're going to have possession issues around actual real logistics, not just seller comfort. And what that potentially means is there's going to be scenario where a buyer of a place is a seller of a place, and the buyer of that place is the seller of a place. So you might have 3 or 4 transactions stacking up over the same amount of days, 4 days. Now, in that scenario, the very first guy isn't necessarily going to be able to wait for those 4 days and then another 4 or 5 days until he can move as everybody moves up the line. So we might start seeing pre-closing possession requests again. And we haven't seen that in a very, very long time. There's nothing wrong with either of these, but it's very important that all of the risks get discussed and everybody gets on the same page with how to mitigate those risks and make everybody comfortable, right? There's nothing wrong with a person moving into a house they're not going to close on for 2 more days. There's just risks associated with it. You need to make sure that you have a conversation about what that looks like and what kind of skin they're willing to put in that game to be able to move into a house they haven't closed on yet, because there are definitely risks. They could move in and decide they hate it. And then what? That's a big problem, right? But if they had to put down another, $10,000 in order to do that, that becomes a lot less risky. I mean, so there's ways around this stuff that are not unreasonable relative to the transaction size and the scope of people's financial capabilities. But it's really important that you talk about the risks and what could go wrong. It's back to just kind of brainstorming all the choices and all the potential risks and discussing it with your clients and getting on the same page with the other side and telling them, like, here are the things we're most afraid of in doing this. And if we can resolve those issues, then we can move forward. So again, there's nothing wrong with this. I think a lot of times agents look at this and they're like, this like it's too sticky, which it is sticky, but just have the conversation and make sure all the risks are understood and mitigated however best they can be. But this is going to become a thing again, especially on the pre side. We've been having post possession for years, but all right, on to number 1, and I'm sure you can guess what it is.
Drum roll, please. Oops.
Maybe. Okay, there it is. Earnest money. So you see, I've got 3 bullet points there. First and foremost, whether you are the listing agent or the buyer's agent, it is very important that we are confirming collection, right? So if you're the buyer's agent, this is another one where in that initial email with dates being managed around loan application and inspections, it's also really important that you've got a really clear paragraph about instructions to deposit earnest money. So you're going to need to get on the phone with the title company that's on the contract if you don't know how they normally handle it, and find out how it's handled, whether they want it mailed or if they've got it, whether they can do it by ACH on their website like GM does. However they do it, you need to make sure that you give those instructions to your client immediately in writing so that you can show everybody that you did your job, right? And then it's important that you continue to follow up. And now this is where it's also important as a listing agent that you're regularly following up. Because when the deal dies 3 weeks in, and then clients find out that agents never even tried to get it deposited or reached out to confirm it was deposited if you're the listing agent, then all of a sudden everybody wants to make it the agent's fault and they want the agent to write the check. So do your job around this. You need to make sure you've got written history that you've been trying to collect it. So on day one, email goes to buyer. On day two, an email to the buyer saying, did you deposit the earnest money yesterday per the instructions I gave you? On day number 3, you do it again until they tell you, yes, I did it. Next up, regarding communication of collection, you don't tell a listing agent the earnest money's been deposited when your client told you that they mailed the check or that they did it online. You tell them the earnest money's been deposited when the title company confirms that they have it. We have lots of occasions where buyer's agents are telling listing agents that the earnest money has been deposited because their client sent them a picture of a check that was made out to the title company for the amount the earnest money was for. And then the deal dies 2 weeks in and they find out that the buyer never actually mailed the check. They just sent them a picture and said, here's the earnest money I'm mailing. And then they never mailed it. So don't take your client's word. Get it from the title company or whoever's holding the earnest money. They need to be the one that confirms it's been deposited before you communicate that it's been collected and deposited. Now, let's talk about expectations around earnest money, because this is another one where buyer and sellers, they're at opposite ends of the continuum. Buyer writes an offer and they assume that they can, if they change their mind, they get the earnest money back. If they can't get financing, they get the earnest money back. If they do an inspection and don't like what they find, they get the earnest money back. 2 of those 3 scenarios, based on the contract, they're right. However, it's important that you tell them that the only way they ever get the earnest money back is if a release gets signed. So a buyer could be completely in accordance with the contract and be doing the right thing and still have to fight over their earnest money because a seller says, oh, that inspection's ridiculous. That stuff's not true. Or they're not actually backing out because of the inspection. They're just backing out because they got cold feet. So I'm keeping the earnest money. I mean, that's a real thing. And if a release doesn't get signed, the buyer can be playing by the rules and still have to fight to get their earnest money back. So it's important that people know that. So you need to share that with them. Our contract is clear on the bottom of the first page about how earnest money gets liquidated. And that's the only way. The closing of a transaction, a mutual release being signed, an agreement between buyer and seller about how it's going to get released, or a court order, or 2 years has to go by from the date of deposit. And then the buyer gets it back. That's the only way. You notice one of those choices wasn't because they called the broker and the broker said that the buyer gets it. It doesn't work that way. I don't have any say. And neither does the other broker. Neither of us have any say. The buyer and the seller have to agree. And it's important that you set that expectation. Lastly, communication, which I hinted at the top there about making sure you're communicating deposit correctly. This again, I just want to reiterate, it's really important that you're doing all this in writing, not over the phone. So once you've got confirmation from the title company in writing that the earnest money has been deposited, then you let the other side know it's been deposited. If you're the listing agent, you need to be requesting in writing, not texting the other agent, not calling the other agent asking if it's been done, in an email asking if earnest money has been deposited. That's the only thing that's going to protect you if things go south. And believe me, they do. And then people get upset and it's immediately your fault if you weren't tracking it down. So make sure that you're doing the right thing. You've only got to do that in the first week. If you're beyond the first week, it's too late. And that lastly, if you're a buyer's agent and you've made it to the 4th or 5th day and your buyer hasn't really responded about the earnest money, the title company doesn't have the earnest money, it's important that you email your buyer and say, since I haven't heard anything about the earnest money and it's now been 5 days since we've had a contract, I need to let the other side know that earnest money hasn't been deposited. And you need to go to the listing agent right away in writing and tell them, I've instructed my buyer to deposit earnest money and given them instructions how to do it multiple times since we've had a contract. As of today, I still don't have any proof it's been deposited. I don't have any proof he's not depositing it, but it's not been deposited. And I need to let you know that. By not doing that, you also start to assume some liability of being the person who's going to write the check. So you need to let the other side know, and it's important you let your client know that you're going to have to do that, so that they don't immediately think you're kind of stepping on their toes. But you got to let the other side know if earnest money isn't deposited on time. So that wraps it up. Does anybody have any questions? I'm never looking at the chat while I'm talking. Anybody got any questions or things they want to discuss a little further? We're over time, but I don't care. We can discuss. So.
We're going to leave the line open for any questions. You know, Andrew, I've always taken notes anytime we talk or anytime you talk. And I know we've had this discussion before, but, you know, 10 through 1, everything comes down to communication, right? You know, walkthroughs, communicate what it is and it isn't. Ethics, communicate what you can and can't do. Breaking contracts, communicate what should happen and what could happen, right? POS, communicate that it exists and what it is with your clients. It's just and that goes, I think we've seen it with new agents all the way up to experienced agents, right? And sometimes you have a buyer who's bought or sold 3 or 4 times, and it feels like, oh, they know as much as I do. And you know, we don't operate with a hive mind. We have to communicate, and as you said, in writing.
Yeah. And I think that's every time I'm in a room with you, and you want people to talk about their favorite part of the Y4C2Ts. I believe communication is the one that I always bring up. Because then I think, I mean, there's 2 pieces of that. One, what it actually says on the walls around our office, which is, you know, seek first to understand, which I think is, you know, the key to not having problems in real estate and in life in general, is to you know, communicate with people and actually seek to understand their perspective, because oftentimes that's the difference between battling and overcoming obstacles, is understanding each other's perspective. And I think inside of a transaction, you know, communication is really more about like setting expectations and making sure people understand what the actual rules of the road are and what their choices are, right?
Yeah.
Because otherwise they'll make up their own rules, and they'll make up choices that seem reasonable that aren't. So
yeah,
if we don't stand in the
everybody-
gap, that's what we're paid to do, is to be the one.
Everybody's walking around with an experience in their past or a story in their head. And it might be a story from my cousin in New Jersey sued and got the difference of what the house should have sold for and what it did sell for, right? And so, you know, everybody has got that something that they're basing their decisions on, and what you want them to base it on is what you're telling them.
Oh yeah. I mean, real estate stories are like fishing stories, right? I mean, everybody's got them, and none of them are true usually. I remember I used to joke about this all the time with people, with buyers that would want to write ridiculous offers. And this was back, you know, 2010, 11, 12. I remember once I had a guy come into my office to write an offer on a house that was listed for, I believe, I don't remember, $585 or something. I think he ended up paying $555. And he says he wants to write this really, really low offer, like in the 3s or something. And he says, well, my friend bought a house last year that was listed for $675 for, you know, I don't remember the real number, $400. And I'm like, oh, interesting. Like, what's the address? Right? He's sitting in my office. We had a big screen in the conference room, right? I pull up the MLS, I pull up the property, right? And like the house his friend bought was originally listed for $6 something and was reduced. And it was listed for, say, you know, $499, and he bought it for $475. But the story his friend goes out and tells everybody is how good of a deal he got, because it was this house that was listed for $675 that he bought for $485. And it's not real. It's not true, because there's not enough communication there.
Right. Yeah.
So,
well, what questions
right.
do you guys have for Andrew? It's you know, we got 50 people on the line. It's a free for all, which, you know, sorry to put you in that position, Andrew, but you know, any pressing questions or concerns going in here to the
I see a couple of quick kind of one word answers I could give people from the chat. There's a question in here about who has say over the title company. Nobody. by standard practice, title companies should be picked by buyers. At least that's my perspective. But it's negotiable. It's in the contract. It's blank, so anybody can pick it. Generally speaking, I think most like old school attorneys and stuff you talk to would probably say the buyer should choose the title company, but there's no rules around that. I think Jeff Wang mentioned texting and emailing.
Yeah.
Always best to email. Text is very difficult to reproduce in a clear way because it doesn't, when you go to screenshot text messages to email them to yourself to print out, you don't end up with times and dates on every message and stuff. So it's not ideal. You're certainly better off with email. Text is fine to schedule an appointment or something. It's not fine to negotiate terms. So, but I think that, let's see, John Murchison's got something in here. I don't know if he's still on there or not, but what do you do when a buyer has gone ghost on a deal and his agent and title is not able to get in contact to sign a release? You move on. Once the contract's been broken, a seller's not beholden to that buyer anymore. If they want to sue them for earnest money or something, they could. But if there's not much to sue for, then you move on. Once a buyer's not performed, a seller has the right to sell the house to somebody else. So, is it really an agent's job to find companies for ROCs? No, it's not. But sometimes that's the most efficient way to actually get to the finish line. So, I don't know if I'd say it's our job, but it is our job to help people out that are our clients. And if part of helping them out involves getting them names and numbers to get something repaired, I don't see why we wouldn't do that. But
yeah, I look at it as it's an opportunity, right? And you as an agent, as Andrew pointed out earlier, there's over 460 agents in this market center. And your resource pool to find a roofer in Geauga County is massive, right? It's better than anybody else's, I would argue. And so that opportunity is how you earn clients for life. If that's a path you want to choose for your unique value proposition or something that you want to leverage, I would recommend that it's easy enough to do it, that you should do it every time.
Yeah. Yeah. Paul Morris has a question in here that says, what about the problem when a buyer who has a mortgage approved goes shopping on credit and causes problems? I'm guessing is what he's getting at, causes problems with financing in the end. That's a sticky situation. The financing contingency is a very short sentence in the contract that usually, depending on if it's our contract or somebody else's, says something to the effect of, if despite a buyer's best efforts or good faith efforts, they are unable to apply and obtain for a mortgage, apply for and obtain a mortgage, that all parties would sign a mutual release and the buyer would get their earnest money back. Quickly, where that becomes gray is, best or good faith efforts. And is a person sabotaging their mortgage process by going out and racking up, 10 grand in debt to not qualify? I don't know. You'd have to go to court to fight about that one. There's no right answer there. But I would say, if a buyer is trying to get a mortgage and the seller, say, extends the contract 2 or 3 times while the buyer's trying to get a mortgage, and then the deal dies because they can't get a mortgage, the seller's out of luck. The sellers all the time, they want to say, well, now, we've been off the market for 90 days and we've waited for this guy and we've given him every opportunity. Yeah, the seller gave him every opportunity, and you can't take back what you've given. So you don't get the right to then keep the earnest money just because the buyer can't get a mortgage. If they made a good effort, the seller didn't have to go along with it, and they did. So that's how.
Can I say, separate from the earnest money, we say this is all about communications. A wise thing for us to do is to counsel our buyers that wait until after the transaction closes before you make the big ticket purchases on credit.
Of course. That's what every loan officer is already telling their clients. But yeah, of course. I don't know why a person would go out and buy a car or $10,000 worth of furniture or $7,000 in appliances or whatever, and put it on credit if they were on the bubble of being able to qualify. But yeah, of course we should be telling that to people. We've got one more in here from Maria Eder. What can be done with a deal being held up by probate issues? Nothing. You gotta deal with the probate attorney. There are times where just because probate's not been cleared doesn't mean that the house can't sell. Think of it as just a big bank account, right? And that bank account can have houses, cars, stocks, bonds, cash, debt. All of it is wrapped up in there. And oftentimes a property that has not been fully probated can still be sold. And the court usually appoints somebody with the power to liquidate assets. And then that cash still stays in that account. It's just now, instead of having a $200,000 piece of real estate, you have $200,000 in cash inside of that estate account. But you'd have to talk to the attorney in that scenario. Whenever there's probate involved or there's an attorney involved with our clients, we just got to talk to the attorney and figure out what the best solution is, and they have to be the one to direct that. So I think that is it as far as questions. So I think we're all set. Thank you guys for your time. I know this went long. I appreciate you listening, and hopefully you got something good out of it. And the final number 0 is if you have a problem you don't know how to solve, call me before you try and solve it yourself. We can talk about it.
Well, thank you for making that offer, making yourself available. And I know we have we've connected on several of these guys. It doesn't get any better than Andrew Ginter when it comes to clear communication, good rationale, and just the facts. Sometimes in these situations it gets heavily emotional, and I will tell you that it is a great benefit to have somebody like Andrew who is just, here's the letter of the law and here's what you can do, and here are the facts, Jack. So thank you, Andrew, for being
Sorry if I ever upset you guys for being a little too upfront about what the problem is and what the resolution is. But Mike's right. I don't generally take into account people's feelings when trying to resolve a problem. Answers are answers. Sometimes people don't like them, but it doesn't mean it's not the answer.
Well, we're lucky to have you. We appreciate everything you do. Happy holidays to you and yours, Andrew. Thank you, everybody, for being here, and congratulations on another great year. Be on the lookout for more communications about the awesome stuff kicking off in January. Ignite on January 3rd, rolls into Bold, rolls into Shift, into Overthrive. Win January, win the year. See you guys.